Before Mr. Bhushan comes on, I just need to include a gentleman who's been standing by for participating in this discussion. He is Mr. Ranjan Sinha, serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of My Pariche, which is a recruitment site. You can see him on the screen there with a social twist. People can look for jobs via their social connections on this particular site. It also enables users to contact the recruiters directly and earn by referrals, and it is an aggregator that searches for jobs from various job portals on a single platform. Mr. Ranjan Sinha joins us now live from California, where he is, via a video call, and we will have a brief interaction with him, and after which Sandeep and Shankar will then throw the floor open to questions from the audience. So Sandeep?
Just getting on to the second part of our discussion now. First, a round of applause for them. They've been working hard. One of the things we always try and do is to get really a cross-section of industries represented, because what we're looking for are common threads. I don't want an airline example. What I really want is to say, hey, listen, in a growth industry or where talent is absolutely scarce, is an example in healthcare, ultra niche, BFSI that can just never have enough talent, or airlines where your skills are unique and in fact in many cases being built by the first sort of leading carrier. So those are kind of things we try and do. We now move to two distinct aspects in the next sort of 30 minutes. First is the whole area of social technology itself. Yeah, I'm just going to bring the technology angle in. Ranjan, of course, based out of Silicon Valley, looks at the social problem or the social opportunity of looking at talent. Yeah? And the way we string it together is, while we heard capability dimensions, which are both cross-functional, in a sense, HR needs to be closer to business, and deeper within HR. For example, assessment is equal to assessment, it is not equal to qualification. Yeah, that's one set of aspects. The other aspect is thinking in new ways as new opportunities open out. Yeah? Social is one of them. Ranjan is somewhat of an expert with his training in Apple and working for an RPO for the longest time, or running an RPO. Ranjan, over to you. Aspects of social that are now part of our capability set that we should be looking to seek.
Thank you, Sandeep. Hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. He's asking to play.
Yeah, Ranjan, we can hear you. I don't know if the connection is very good.
Okay, then I'll start. Good evening, gentlemen. So I think the world of recruitment is changing, and I think we all can sense it. Most changes, it is being driven largely by change in technology. And what I hope to do in the next 10-15 minutes is share with you, through slide after slide, share with you short snippets of how these technologies that are being implemented in real clients, changing the way recruitment is done. And like most technology changes, one of the things that you will see in these technology implementations is it's not just about the traditional technology or the emerging social or mobile technology, but it's really a blend of all the three that makes these technologies so powerful. So it's not about just the old web or the social web, but it's what I call the whole web. And I think that's where the transformation or the more effective technologies you can see. There are really big three changes happening because of what I call the whole. One is the companies now have access to more talent and data on the talent than they have ever had. And it is spurring a whole new kind of data analytics, effectiveness of sourcing, which of my methods and mediums work more effectively to find talent. The second is candidates have access to more jobs. There is a certain level of network, whether it's social or social professional, that is allowing candidates to get to the right job much more efficiently. And if you are not in that, leveraging that network, you're probably missing out on the best candidates. And the last and probably the most interesting phenomena is companies now can own their own employer brand versus constantly buying it. So I'll use these three themes and utilize that through of actual technologies at work. So candidates are now on the whole web. So if you look at it from the days of resumes sitting in Rolodexes, there was the emergence of job boards. And this was really where resumes were curated, they were structured, and that went on for 5, 7, 8, 9 years. And then what emerged was basically LinkedIn, which is kind of what we call a self-disclosed resume. And there is a certain level of social control on information and a social validation. Now there is an emerging third generation of technology where these technologies are intelligently mining candidate information wherever they are, whether they are on traditional web, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. So here is an example where MyParichय is actually going through the Facebook network and meaningfully extracting professional information about people and giving the ability to connect with them, contact them in more real profile. But what's more interesting is these technologies can actually give you a window from one point into the other areas of life. So you can find a profile either on MyParichय, for example, and you find the corresponding their LinkedIn or Facebook profile. And it really gives you a 360-degree view of the task of the candidate. The second trend that is clear is jobs are on the whole web. So this is the traditional way where you find jobs. Now, jobs are on LinkedIn. Jobs are now on Facebook. And the more interesting part is, today, every individual is a distributor of jobs. So I today can take a job, I share it on LinkedIn. I can take the same job or a different job, share it on Facebook. And at this point, when I share it in any of these mediums, it is picked up by one of my friends who can again continue distributing it, either on Facebook or Twitter or whichever other medium it might be. So when you look at the fact that your access to candidates is significant, you have to figure out a way and use technology that takes advantage of every person on the whole web who's relevant to you to become a distributor of your job. Now, the third element of this is candidates today are getting their jobs, or recruiters are getting to the candidate through something that we have all known. And it's through connections. Some of the best jobs you find through connections. Companies know some future employees come from the connections of their current employees. And to make this compelling and meaningful technology, what we look at is this framework where there are people on your network, whether LinkedIn, Facebook, otherwise, that have a capacity to help you. And then, depending on the closeness you have with the person, you have the ability to impose an obligation to get the person to help you find a job. So if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, it's probably a LinkedIn network. These are folks who are all professionals, and perhaps the right ones have the high capacity to help you find the job or get the job. But the chances are your closeness may not be that high. And then on the top right corner is the sweet spot where you have your Facebook college friends, to hang out with who are professionals. And they not only have a high capacity, but high level of closeness. So for the tech work effectively for you, when the candidate is coming into whatever medium your job is, it's important that they are able to leverage the right-hand side of the spectrum, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook. And then on the right-hand side, the left-hand side is kind of obvious. You know, you have low capacity and low closeness, which is probably most of the world that's not part of your network. And sometimes you have family members that are very close to you, but may not have the capacity to help you. So you take that same framework and paradigm and then implement it in a technology. So what you see here is Shine, where normally you would be able to apply. However, the technology now, when the candidate is coming, looking at the job, you want to give this candidate an edge or a sense of closeness with the organization. And at this point, the technology has looked through the social graph and LinkedIn graph of the candidate, and the candidate can now apply through a friend. So in this case, he doesn't have a friend, but he can get introduced to Matan through Prakash. And then you go into the traditional where you upload your resume, and instead of this resume directly going into an email, is now going to show up as a message on Prakash, say Facebook, whether it's on a mobile device or desktop, requesting Prakash to basically set up an introduction. Now you can extend same experience on Facebook. So previously you saw traditional technology combined with the current technology. And now in this case, you are looking at a Facebook page that now has a similar connection technology with the same job from a job board can be posted on the Facebook page. And now the person is again seeing a very different experience. Now again, these are her Facebook friends. In this case, some of them are connected to employees even if they are not working in the company. And then there are LinkedIn connections. I can then decide as a candidate, maybe I will go through a Facebook friend to get an introduction, or perhaps in this case, I feel comfortable with a LinkedIn friend. And I can go ahead and click on the LinkedIn friend. And at this point, basically, I'll again go through a more traditional mechanism of attaching a resume and submitting an application. And at this point, this gentleman who's my LinkedIn connection is going to receive this application in their LinkedIn account, and then they can basically forward it to the recruiter.
Have you lost Ranjan? Okay, so just in the interest of time, I think the point Ranjan's making is through an illustration of social and how that's sort of bringing networks into play. I think the question that sets up is the whole area of capability. If at HR point of view, we talk about talent scarcity, and if you take the minor paradigm that between my employees, friends, and my candidates' referrals, the whole world is covered, actually, theoretically, then what is the capability required in the talent acquisition team to make some of these pieces happen? Yeah, I think that's just the thought starter there. And how much are we going to invest in some of these capabilities? We heard of some skills, we heard of some competencies, and we are now just hinting at the fact that there are capabilities that need to be brought into the system. We now move to the questions before I invite Mr. Bagga for his closing note. Like I promised you, we will hold them to the promise that we want to take out some specifics. And while we did pick up some, I'm sure there are questions. I've got a couple of questions off Twitter. But before I open my questions to Shankar and the team, please raise a hand and seek your questions answer. Do you have mics around? Yeah, I'll just come back to you. Just switch that on, please. Yeah, can you introduce yourself?
Hello. Good evening, one and all. I'm Nandakishore from Lanco. Sir, Debrat sir, I do agree with you. There is huge talent in India, and we are very good raw material, I know that. And the thing is, why we are failing to convert them as a productive resources, where the average resources in India, abroad they are creating wonders. We do campus recruitments. We went for the campus recruitments. After 3 years, how many of them are there with the company in a managerial position?
Your question, therefore, please.
So let me clarify the question. Yeah. Are you talking about retention of talent? Are you talking about talent we take in, we don't consider them to be productive?
Where we are failing to convert them as a valid resources or productive resources?
Okay, so if I can just cut the question. We have lots of talent, we don't seem to be having it on the shop floor. What are we missing? So that's an hour's debate, but
are we failing to mentoring them or coaching them or developing them? Where we are missing?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
This is a very, first I think this is a very organization specific answer, because if you look around the people sitting around and you speak to them, I'm sure you'll engage. Maybe people have different views on this. My experience with the organization, I've worked for a consultant, predominantly the belief that they have good people is inherent in the business model. I think the challenge comes in what we were talking about, the build versus buy model. Do I need to get the best talent from outside? Or when something comes up, as Umesh was talking about, are we really equipping people within to take up those roles? And the challenge in my view is because business managers from within want the guy who's 110% there, because they don't want to miss out on that one sale. You're from Ramco, right? I don't want to miss out on that one sale of that ERP package that Ramco has. I don't think this guy is ready. Don't make him the project manager. That's the challenge. I think business managers, and that's where HR comes into a line and say, let's take a punt on people. We need to take punts on people, maybe give them jobs that is a size larger than what they can really work on, and grow them into the roles. And I think that's fundamental. And to me, that's essential in driving this change that we are talking about. In terms of being productive outside, the one frame that I can talk of in my experience, I think outside the value of effort and output is far more than what you see here. The achievement orientation here is so high that I think there is a larger population of people who come out at a similar level at the highest, whereas in the West, there is a sharper differentiation. My last phrase is, I think a lot of these definitions of productive, which is a function of an output. So how many ERPs sold? There is a business dimension to it. Do we really have the business dimensions assessed and targeted in the right manner given the challenges? When you're driving for 20% growth, if the industry is shrinking 5%, nobody will be productive. Nobody will make bonuses. I think there is a fundamental of how we are doing business planning. Are we factoring external realities, sectoral realities? That's a challenge I see in most retail organizations, by the way. So, long-winded maybe, but those are the frames I could talk of.
Debabrata, would you like to add to that?
See, the issue is not about what kind of, whether the talent is productive or not. So just sit back, think, and answer this question. When we go out to recruit, what is it that we are communicating as our expectation in terms of what that candidate needs to have? If I go back to my old statement, that if we just say that we need an engineer, you are not going to get any outcome out of that. You just got somebody who has a label. But what skill sets, what do you expect that person to have as an individual, and therefore what will you transform that as an outcome is a far more important question. This country, and especially India, definitely lacks in job design. How many companies have very clearly defined expectations from their employees, documented, communicated, and tracked over a period of time? We work as, I work as consultant. Hay Group is one of the leading management consulting firms. We find that in every organization we go to, there might be a brief idea, but in most cases, good job design is missing. So the day we get a fix on what is it that we're looking for in an individual rather than the certification or the qualification, I think you will start picking the right candidates. What we need to do is that know what we are looking for and assess people to find whether they have it in them. I don't think we'll be very far off from getting them productive and getting the results we want from them.
Yeah. I think, Shankar, the point, and just taking out from there, 70% of JDs on a job portal like mine will have job descriptions measured in words, not in sentences. Get me the circulation guy. Get me the recruitment guy. I think the question that's on the table, and I'd like the panel to just reflect on this, is the talent that is possible to get, forget training, forget skilling, that is possible to net into our productive workforce. There may be a slip within the organization the way we are constructing the problem set. I think that's a little bit of the hint that I'm hearing. Apart from, of course, macro variables such as the fact that the colleges don't produce. My institute uses case studies from 1969, really. Sales case study from 1969 when the world's just tumbled around. Next question, please. I have a question from Twitter. I'll just come back to it. I'll take another question. Gentleman here, please.
From Ericsson India. My question is like, see, in HR, we have various functions. We have the L&D, we have the talent acquisition, we have the talent management, work planning and analytics, the legal. What happens exactly is that we are unable to get the, we look for a subject matter expert. We look for a SME. The concept of this SME comes at a higher stage. I would like, to throw some light that how can we have a SME a candidate who begins his career with one of the, career path, either in TA or, so where can we, I would like you to address that. Where can we get that kind of candidate who is an SME from the beginning of his career, or who can, intend to get mold into that subject, probably?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting question. Anybody?
Is the question about the need for a specialist versus a generalist?
Yes.
And you believe that most people in HR want to be a generalist, not a specialist. Is that a fair, and therefore you're wondering?
I am not that of opinion. I would, because I am from the legal background, I would say that I would like to be a professional in or a subject matter expert with one of the areas of HR.
So the question is, how do we have subject matter experts at lower levels in HR?
Yes. How do we develop that so that, the focus is clear?
I think for people who are aware, how many people know of the actuarial world in insurance? It's a fantastic benchmark. If you see the actuarial world, people enter and make their career in that. It's a highly specialized. You enter, you keep passing exams, you become a certified actuary, and you keep contributing. But that's your only career path. They are highly paid resources, highly valued. However, they are specialists. Again, I don't see the challenge the way that you're positioning it. When we were in campus and you're saying start off, we used to debate that should I start off with one area, specialize myself? Should I start off, nahi, kya hoga? Milega, how will I get branded? I think these are all career choices. These are all career choices, and this is extremely individual, right? If I as an individual have planned or have thought with my mentor, and I have a view on the way my career is unfolding, and I see it headed in a direction, I would use that as a frame to say, what do I need to do? So if my intent, for example, is to say, I want to be the CNB lead and that's it, then a specialist path offers that. If somebody says, no, HR for me is a stepping stone, I want to be a business manager, you better get a sharper understanding. So to me, this question needs to get answered for the individual in terms of how they see their progress and what are their aspirations, right? And therefore, it may be difficult to do it at the start of one's career, and that's where, again, the power of the supervisor comes up. To me, even the first question, the power of the supervisor is evident. Coaching, guiding, counseling the person, looking at those inherent skill sets and recommending the right role that he or she can make a success on. And if that's a specialist, so be it. If that's a broader, so be it, right? That's the way that I see it. So I think it's an individual choices. It's not about good, bad, or... Because we have enough people as specialists at very junior levels also.
I'll just add to...
Please.
So, Alok, right? Have I got it? Yeah, Alok, in fact, you picked up the right question. In fact, SMEs or COEs, what we call in some organizations, are very difficult to find, in fact. And there's a lot of confusion because, as Devraj mentioned, there's a lot of guidance needed to young HR professionals as to what is their aptitude, even in HR. They want to do less but more deeply involved in that, or they want to do everything, okay, in HR and be more closer to the business. So normally what I do with my team especially is that I think it's very important to guide them that SMEs have a bigger role in connecting to the external world, whereas HRBPs have a very big role in connecting to the internal world. And how do they complement each other is very, very important. So internal world is brought to the SMEs by the HRBPs, and external world is brought to the HRBPs by the SMEs. So I think their SMEs, we need to figure out whether they have the right aptitude for being an SME. They want to go little deeper into things. One process, let's say PMS or talent acquisition, or one process they want to go deep and find out, research a lot. And if they have that kind of orientation, I think that's what you need to figure out and train them on and guide them on, that this is your area and this is where you. However, at a given point of time, yes, they can rotate. Once they get enough expertise in one of the SMEs or COE areas, they can generally even rotate to generalist roles also. Some of them succeed in generalist roles also. But yeah, a lot of guidance is needed initially.
Gayatri, you want to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted
and just Gayatri, just before that, I'm going to bring you in. A quick process check, gentlemen. Our card says close at 9, but can the cocktails be open 15 minutes late? We'll survive. I think we take a couple more questions then. Yeah, the fair deal? The soda is still bottled, so it's all going to be okay. Gayatri, your turn, please.
So, just wearing a different lens, that after a few years, from an organization point of view or from a senior leadership point of view, I think getting SMEs to do generalist roles or being on extended projects is very important. The reason I say it is specialists can otherwise sometimes get very process, domain, inward looking. However, there's a business reality in which you construct processes or run programs. And I think I'm calling out a factor which says it's very important for them to be an extension, therefore, of either an HR business partner or be part of an extended business team on projects. Because otherwise, anything that can get created can be very, how it can operate in an ideal world. The reality is we don't exist in ideal worlds.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take one question from there. You introduce yourself, please.
Excuse me.
Oh, there's a mic already sold. I'll come back to you. Somebody has a mic, so he has the right. I'll come back to you.
Good evening. I have some friends on the right, left and some on the right, so and some of them are in the middle. My name is Vijay Rai, and I work as president and CEO with PowerCon, which is into alternative energy space, and having 20 years into diverse sectors like telecom, oil and gas, blah, blah. I have a worry here. I was quite intrigued to hear all of you saying HR getting a seat at the table. In an increasingly volatile situation, I wonder who sets the table first. And in an increasingly uncertain VUCA world, where is the business going to come from? And how far HR is prepared to understand not just the mechanics which HR people are doing, including all of us, it is the dynamics which is shaping the future of the work. We have a huge leadership deficit, one question. Secondly, we have a strategic deficit. We don't know where to go, what to do. And we also have an action deficit, what you were asking about thought and action. Where is that going to come from? Devraj, you were saying about, talking about the change and many other things. And are we really prepared in HR? I'm not too sure about it. So how do we develop that strategic insight and the foresight and the agility which is required to really weather this economic chaos? You know, it's a huge challenge because a lot of CEOs are churning themselves. How do you claim to take a seat at the table? And when Sukhjit said guaranteed seat, so I was a little more worried because, you know, he already guaranteed that. And all of you are claiming that, you know, you have a seat at the table, while operation guys, production guys, all of them have to get a seat at the table. So my worry is that the careers are changing. It is not a ladder.
Can I come to the question, please? Can I come to the question, please?
From ladder to lattice, we are moving from sideways to horizontal. Do we have a capability deficit? And
okay, I'm going to pick that question.
So how do you really develop the internal capability of an organization? Yeah. What are those key things which you need to understand to really drive the business forward before you take the seat?
So first, I think if the US Army was to think about how their term called VUCA is being used in the HR parlance, I think some of them are going to turn around. I don't know how many people are aware of this term VUCA that you've used. It's a US Army term which basically talks of the uncertain environment, and WCA stands for various, but without getting into it. First, just to maybe correct, I didn't hear anybody say that we are there yet. So I think we were self-critical because the evaluations, and I think we did that, we said we are 5, right? So first, going back, I think there is an inherent understanding that we are not there yet. I think that came out very clearly. The second is a very interesting, I think this definition of seat at the table and how it's interpreted is, I think your definition of seat at the table was the CEO. Is that a fair assumption? Is that your definition of what we meant by seat at the table?
Yeah.
Correct. I was asking, because you responded, is your frame that? For me, seat at the table, the way that I saw it, was in a position where we are able to influence business that impacts business outcomes. Now, whether it is in an EMC environment, management council, whether it's in the leadership team, as the CEO, I really don't know. So my definition of seat at the table is not a position as much as the role, and therefore, that's the way I defined this. Coming back to capability, you know, there are people who made moves from HR into CEO and into business, very few, but it's happened. So I would assume that, therefore, there is an inherent skill set that needs to get exploited. I go back to the fundamentals. I still believe this transition, in whatever definition of seat at the table, has a large connection with who I am as an individual, and therefore not everybody can do it. That's my hypothesis. It's an attitude, it's a personality, it's a traits that some of which are inherent and needs to be coached and maybe brought out more. So there is that piece. The capability can only add skills. So therefore, to that extent, whether it's a MDP, coaching, etc., it's only builds skills. But core leadership behaviors that you talk about, there are certain inherent. And therefore, working with, again, I go back, this is where, again, I say, and in my definition, the supervisor and the skip level maybe becomes extremely important in driving this, this capability enhancement and, counseling people as to whether they are ready for the seat or not. So that's the frame that I would like to say. So in summary, I don't think we are there yet. Let me take my personal view. Second, seat at the table is about being in a position of influence to impact business positively. That I think we can. In retail organizations, typically HR cost line is 50 to 55% of the operating expense. And third, there is a behavioral attribute, so not everybody can make the shift. And fourth, it has to be in partner with the managers in terms of capability. Yeah. Just to keep it very, without getting into technicalities of capability.
Yeah. I think, sorry, Deborah, please.
I just wanted to ask a question to the audience. How many times have we heard, like Devraj had used the framework of change agent and business partner and so on and so forth. How many times have you come across a similar framework for the finance function or the sales and marketing function or supply chain management? My guess is never, right? I think the first step is HR tries to create its own world by using certain definitions. You'll never hear sales and marketing having a business partner. That is the business. You'll never hear finance as business partners. That is the business. I think we need to start defining HR as the business. No organization can survive if the talent part is not taken care of. So I would attribute this to consultants, authors, management gurus who create all these new phrases for HR and pull it further and further away from the core of the business. I think that's the bigger issue to deal with.
Yeah. I'm going to take one last question, and after that, Shankar, I'll invite you to make a closing note.
Good evening, everyone. Myself, Vivek Saxena. I may be one odd out of the entire group. The question what I'm about to put, it's to all the respected panelists. We all of us sitting here to improve the HR process, HR talent, what the managers, most of the managers are sitting here in this venue. Going through the experience, maybe most of the people, when we are going to interview, forget all the other departments. When we are going to take the interviews for the HR executive, assistant manager of HR, people has come all the way from mushrooms of colleges of MBA HR. Are we having any plan to improve their talent? Because as per qualification, they say they are the talented, they are qualified. But when they come to face-to-face interview, we are sitting here spending a lot of time to improve all the managers who is today's manager. Are we having any plan to improve the tomorrow's manager, which is coming out from the MBA HR, from the mushrooms of colleges, from the road of Ghaziabad and Noida?
Yeah, fair. So fair. The question is therefore, entry-level HR talent, are we going to help someone out there before they come to us unprepared?
You want to take it, Ramesh?
In case you are interested, you know, the largest body, NHRD, okay, that itself is working on this agenda. So what you're pointing out is a reality, and everybody feels that the curriculum needs to be fixed. The way the competencies are defined for HR professionals, those need to be fixed. So everybody is aware of the problem. There are attempts being made. But again, going back to the fundamental question, you know, the way we look at people in the HR function, so stop looking at HR MBAs for people in the HR function. Hire a user experience designer, hire an architect, hire a sales and marketing person. You know, see what wonders they can do to the function. I think the biggest problem is that we do not seek diversity in the HR function itself.
And that's the consultant talking. So, you know, why isn't he?
Okay.
Let me take this slightly differently. I think we make our lives more complex. I think if you see data, HR people have the largest number of symposiums, conferences, seminars all over. We have the largest number of gatherings. And we still have these kind of questions. Fundamental to any business school, if I take the frame that Devabrat said, there is an inherent, and I go back, and that's fundamental to how I look at talent, and it cuts across. It's who you are as an individual, and therefore what value you bring, and therefore the title is agnostic. I think a professional in HR from IIM, assuming they had that, versus from a C category, maybe the C category is far better, right? Because like we talked about HR 3.0, some of these fundamentals. More important, I think it goes beyond course curriculum. The average MBA college is trying to enhance corporate interface, getting people who are sharing practical applications of what they are learning. So balancing the theory with the practical, I think, is extremely important. Coming out with something that's theoretical and then learning that's not how you implement it, performance management, comp, is bound to, you know, set you back. So I think there is some other ways beyond the course itself, and that's where maybe corporates like you, people sitting across in your organization, can do that work. You know, how many of us spare that time to go to a college and talk to young people today? Are we sharing with them the pitfalls, the challenges of what we talk about? I really don't think so. So I think there is something that we can do ourselves without the NHRD. I mean, that's far bigger. That could potentially drive this change.
Yeah. I'm going to stop this session here. We're going to find all of these people over drink. Shankar, therefore, wrap on this session before we go to the closing note. Therefore, as an editor who looks at the world from a slightly 30,000 feet perspective, you've heard HR folks in sort of this vicinity not so often. Are you taking back a few pieces in terms of what HR is trying to do to make your and my life better? Because it's our people they're going to make better for us.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, I'm certainly taking away a few things. I think over the last hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, we've learned there's so many interesting ideas that have come out of this discussion. Some disruptive ideas, some interesting in different ways. We've heard the downturns being framed as a privilege. We've heard the talk of the need to be good influencers, bigger role in experience design. Know where the shoe pinches, I thought is a very striking way of putting it. I think Umesh spoke of moving from transactional to transitional HR. Be a designer, not a component in design, both of which I found very striking. Need to understand business, use analytics, to see HR as a project, for HR managers to become project managers as well. And a striking idea, I think it came from Devabrat, of sales, of HR being seen as a sales and marketing tool for the talent marketplace. Abandon the fast food culture, I think that's good advice. Build rather than buy, question of fitment in terms of how you get to the end result. Need to look at the total value proposition. And it was also very interesting to hear about the young needing real-time appreciation. I think it was Gayatri who said this. Engagement is the biggest challenge in the case of young people. I think that's something I take away because a lot of our workforce at HT Media is very young. If you look across the editorial flow, you'll see people of 22 and 23 and 25. And keeping them in good spirits is a big challenge we face. And of course, towards the end, I heard this very interesting thing of the need to increase diversity in the HR function, which is most interesting. That's an idea I take home to the HR people in HT.
Yeah. Shankar and I, of course, running a minor little conversation in our heads that, oh my God, if HR goes that far ahead, we'll be a little happier for sure. Rini, yours.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause to our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to now invite Mr. Mukul Bagga, Managing Director at Quest Diagnostic, to deliver the closing note. Mr. Bagga has more than 2 decades of experience in the healthcare industry with roles of increased responsibility in sales, marketing, and general management. Prior to this, he was the head of institutional business and new audiences at Novartis, where he worked with corporate hospitals, government agencies, insurance companies, and patient groups. Mr. Bagga was part of the local executive committee and has been closely associated with strategic decision forums, global projects, etc. Prior to that, his experience includes turnarounds and establishing new divisions at Johnson & Johnson and Ranbaxy. Mr. Bagga.
Thank you. A very good evening to all of you. I don't know whether it's by design, but this topic on health risk assessment, it's been well positioned just before you dive into your cocktails and kebabs. But I think the esteemed panel were having a very interesting discussion. If I may just summarize what I gathered from it. I think we are clearly seeing in today's economic downturn, very volatile times, there is definitely a challenge around productivity. And I think the paradigm of HR is clearly changing from transaction to value addition. And I think they discussed some very interesting ideas around value addition, focusing on talent, focusing on technology, etc. So I'm here to talk to you about something maybe which they did not bring up, but which could be of interest to you in terms of health. So you may raise your eyebrows that how can we talk about health in productivity times where typically health is perceived to be a luxury, a kind of a perk given to many employees in terms of retention and engagement. So maybe we would like to share with you a slightly different perspective on what health could be in terms of a value addition. So basically, I represent Quest Diagnostics. Quest is the largest pathology service provider in the world. And if I may just put it in a perspective to you, 150 million patients are touched by Quest in the US alone, which is almost half the US population. So we definitely have some expertise in doing these kind of programs across various corporates around the world. And we have, of course, been doing a little bit in India as well. What we would like to basically cover in the next 5-10 minutes is to try to give you a quick snapshot. What's the health status of corporate today? And maybe a few insights in terms of what our experience at Quest has been in terms of the programs we have conducted, what kind of insights they throw up in terms of what's happening on healthcare, and then maybe some solutions which could give you some leads in terms of what you want to do in terms of value addition. So as I said, we want to talk about health not just as an engagement tool or as a perk, but in terms of productivity, in terms of cost reduction, etc. for the organization. And here is some insights which could give you, inputs on that. So basically, first, I would like to highlight to you something what we would call chronic diseases. I appreciate many of you may not have a medical background, so just to put it in, layperson terms, chronic diseases means we are referring to diabetes, hypertension. I think all of you would be well aware, India is talked about as the diabetes capital of the world, etc. So what you can clearly see from the graph in front of you is how the chronic contribution, the chronic disease contribution is really growing up. Today we are not just talking about the acute diseases affecting us, but more the chronic diseases and how these chronic diseases could affect you is what we want to just highlight in the next couple of slides. Here is a little data in terms of what the cost of these chronic diseases are. So chronic diseases, whether you look at diabetes or you look at hypertension, as you can see, the costs are very significant. Almost 25% increase in productivity could depend upon the cost of managing these diseases. Of course, this data and study which we put up over here is based on the US, but I think it is representative of what we believe is possibly happening. It's something like a tip of the iceberg. You're just looking at the problem in terms of few symptoms, but the real hidden underlying cost behind this is more in terms of the productivity, the productive time lost by the employees, or the cost in terms of the insurance premiums you would pay in terms of the health of the employees, etc., etc. Here is another way of looking at it, where we are talking about organizations investing almost $290 in terms of the cost per employee, and I'm talking in dollars because this data came from a US study, but I think you all would appreciate that this is a similar investment you make in your talent. So for $1,000 of revenue, of $290 is what you invest in recruitment, training, salaries, etc. You can imagine what kind of impact you could get if productivity of these employees is enhanced through various interventions and initiatives you could take. The small experience we have, I will just try to quickly walk you through that. This is data which is taken across the projects which we did in India. These are the basic demographics of that. We have covered about 19 companies, 12 multinational companies, and 7 Indian companies, and about a 3,500 population. And what this data reveals is really eye-opening. So we'll look at 3 basic organ systems: diabetes, hypertension, and kidney disease. What you see here is in terms of the diabetes risk is almost 25% of the population surveyed. These are companies who participated in wellness programs which we conducted. The employees had a risk of diabetes. And as you can see at the chart at the bottom, this risk is even as high as 18% in population below 30. Of course, population above 50 would have almost 50% risk. Moving on to hypertension, which is considered to be the #1 cause of death in the country today, almost 75% of the population above the age of 50 were at risk of hypertension. So this is just to give you a sense in terms of the cost and in terms of what the extent of the problem is today. So are we doing enough to try and address this problem, and what kind of solutions could be possible? Kidney disease, also similar, very high cost of 1 in 10 population. And if you look at a comparison with the US, because we have got the experience out of the US as well, and this is a larger database, almost 1/3 of the employees surveyed in these wellness camps came out with a new disease which was not diagnosed earlier. So all these diseases, of course, in the US context add to the healthcare cost, but as you will appreciate, even in India, most of the organizations are offering healthcare insurance to their employees, and they are paying huge premiums for this insurance to the insurance companies. This is definitely something which you would like to look at. Another survey which we have conducted, which gives you a snapshot, only 37% of the population of the corporates which we surveyed were actually doing some form of wellness. And out of the 37%, as you can see, and maybe this is not too much of a surprise, maybe I'm saying something a little controversial here, 83% are multinationals. Basically, companies who come from a background of doing this kind of thing in their parent organization, and then who are extending it over here. Is it that Indian companies or Indian company employees don't need this kind of intervention, or they don't have a challenge around productivity? So this is something which you would like to think about in terms of what you would like to do in the future. So moving on to some of the solutions which we think are possible, definitely you would like to look at the risk factors. So I think this is a starting point. Survey what kind of risk factors you would like to analyze, and once you have zeroed onto that, that's a starting point of an intervention. And the way we would like to look at it is in terms of this kind of a simple module where you have to motivate, measure, and modify. If I was to give you a sense, today most of the interventions, healthcare interventions which are happening, and if I'm talking from the transaction perspective, are more in terms of measurement. Typical annual health checkups which are done in tie-ups with certain hospitals, which give you a list of values, and that's it. The employee doesn't know what to make of it. The employee doesn't do anything about it. It's just done as a one-off thing. Maybe 25–30% of your employees participate in this. So is it really having the impact which you had intended it to impact? That's what you need to reflect upon and think in terms of what you want to do in the future. So what we would like to suggest to you is do something which will first motivate, so that the number of employees participating in this program increases significantly, so that your intervention has an impact. And secondly, not just measure, but also come up with insights which the employee can use in terms of how they change their lifestyles, habits, etc., and which can then flow into your productivity, etc. So this is what we would like to give you just as a thought over here. In terms of the benefits, obviously, I think I don't need to enumerate this, right from being recognized as a top employer to various other things. These are the, maybe say, I would put it as the bonus of this kind of intervention. But in today's environment, I think productivity and cost is what you should be really looking at in terms of this kind of an intervention. At Quest, we offer a very unique program. It's called the Blueprint for Wellness program. It's a proprietary program which we have created. We take these list of tests which we traditionally do, and input it into a proprietary algorithm which generates a special report, a customized report, which is called the Blueprint for Wellness report. So this is a report which every employee would get who would participate in this program. But we also, in addition to this, provide an employer aggregated report. So you would be able to see the demographics of what the healthcare status of your organization, and then also have certain interventions as and where you see them appropriate. I think copies of these reports, sample copies of these reports are there in the kit provided to you. So feel free to go through that. If you have any questions, our team is here to take them and address them for you, or we can come and meet you at a later stage. I hope this didn't sound too promotional, and it blended well with what the panel was trying to discuss, and it adds value to your growth from transaction to value addition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bagga. I hope this has not discouraged you from participating in the cocktails and dinner that we have organized outside. It is for your health that Mr. Bagga was talking about the various diagnostic tools that are available today. We'd like to now felicitate our panelists, and to do so, may I request Mr. Rajeshwar Mukhopadhyay, Head Customer Strategy at Shine.com, to please come up and present small tokens of appreciation to our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, a bigger and more enthusiastic round of applause for them. Thank you very much. I'd like to request our panelists to please step down. I think some of them have to catch a flight back to their cities from where they've come. Thank you very much for being here, and a big thank you to our moderator, Mr. Shankar, for having conducted that session very beautifully. A group photograph with all our panelists and our moderator. Sandeep, do you want to join them for this? Yeah, Shankar. We have lots of ice, don't worry. Thank you very much. As our panelists step down, I'd like to now request Mr. Mayank Gupta, Branch Head, Delhi NCR, Shine.com, to please come up, and we'd like to felicitate our sponsors now. And if, as I call out the name of the company, if I could request the representative to quickly come up and take the small token of appreciation that we have for you. Our presenting sponsor, World of Wonders. If we could have a representative come up quickly, please. Our associate sponsor, Artech Developer. Artech Developers. Artech, come from there, please. Healthcare partner, Quest Diagnostics. Please come up. Our event partners, Fiat, SVIET, Sri Vasavi Institute of Engineering and Technology. Indira Group of Institutes. Sterling Holidays. Elysis or Ilisis. LIC. Bank of Baroda. Corporation Bank. Sharda Group of Institutions and HITA, Hindustan Institute of Technology and Management, Agra. And Aviare, the educational hub, which is continuously putting efforts to increase innovation, to change the patterns of higher education in society. They're also working towards social educational upliftment of the youth of financially weaker sections of society. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. A big round of applause for all of you. Please join us now for cocktails and dinner outside. Thank you.